who's trying to be a little healthier and more creative with your meals. I know I learned a lot just in our planning discussion last week. We will leave a little bit of time at the end for any questions from the audience. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will turn it over to you. Get these microphones. Good morning. How's everyone feeling? Good. Yeah. That's great. First of all, thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. Carolyn Lake is the Executive Director of the Interfaith Food Pantry, where she's played a pivotal role in expanding operations, resource development, and program initiatives. She was recruited as a volunteer. Probably most of us know that your best volunteers also become your best employees, right? She was recruited as a volunteer to join the staff in 2004 and served in programs, operations, and development before becoming the executive director in 2019. Under her leadership, the organization has doubled its size, enhancing the existing programs and introducing new initiatives, distributing over 2.3 million pounds of food annually across 40,000 households. Carolyn is deeply committed to ensuring equitable access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food in a dignified environment, helping communities thrive and succeed. So we know who you are. Thank you. Jessica Carr is currently the Senior Campus Dietitian here at Montclair State University. In this role, she blends food service management, community nutrition, and one-on-one nutrition counseling, along with providing counseling to students, student athletes, faculty, and staff. Jessica manages a dining hall, develops menus, hosts nutrition and culinary education events, and supports individuals with food allergies and dietary restrictions to help them dine safely on campus. One of her top priorities is building Nourish, the university's dietitian-led wellness program, making sure it is engaging, accessible, and relevant to the campus community. Jessica also serves as the chair of Nutrition Awards for the National Association of College and University Food Services, where she helps recognize and celebrate outstanding nutrition initiatives and higher education nationwide. Jessica, good morning. And last but not least, Caitlin Rulli is a registered dietitian at Inserra Supermarkets and serves as the in-store dietitian at ShopRite of Northdale, New Jersey. She runs a variety of community programs, in-store events, and one-on-one counseling for the residents that visit her store. She received her bachelor's degree at the University of Delaware, completed her dietetic internship here at Montclair State University, and received her master's of science from Stony Brook University in December, and she's walking in May. Congratulations, Caitlin is passionate about culinary education, especially for children. So again, thank you all so much for being here today. And I think we can just start by maybe having each of you, starting with Carolyn and moving down, talk a little bit about your work, the population that you serve, and your approach to food literacy with that population and in your role.
Sure, thank you, Hend. Very nice to see you all today. Thank you, Heather, for inviting me. It's great to have a lot of friends in the room. As Hend mentioned, the Interfaith Food Pantry Network is Morris County's largest provider of emergency and supplemental food. We did distribute 2.3 million pounds of food last year. Interestingly enough, about almost 1 million of that was in fresh produce.
Amazing. To your fresh produce providers.
We have many fresh produce providers, including the community food bank. We work with a lot of distributors, we work with a lot of local farms, and we work with a lot of rescue organizations. that provide us with our fresh produce. Obviously, our approach to food insecurity is centered around health, and our first part of our mission statement is to improve the health and well-being of our community by providing access to food, nutrition education, and related resources. So, we really look at the work that we do as improving the health of the people that we serve, whether they're families with children, whether they're senior citizens that are just looking to age with dignity where they are. We do view nutrition education as a really important component of the work that we do. We have a nutritionist on staff, or a nutritionist. Daily, as people come in for food, because they come in once a month, we do work on an appointment system. They have the option to come into our nutrition class. It's about half an hour before we start giving out food. And each month, our nutrition educator has a topic. That topic might center around hypertension or diabetes, or what are some of the issues that are developed when you are living on a poor diet, or if you lack access to the proper amount of nutritional foods. So each month she has a topic and she develops information related to that particular health topic. And we do have a teaching kitchen in our facility where she is able to create recipes, have conversations with the people that are in the class about, why is it important to eliminate sodium from your diet? What does that do to you if you're struggling with high blood pressure? What is the correlation between what you're eating and your health outcomes? And then she'll actually do a cooking demonstration. She'll use recipes that contain ingredients that are regularly available in our food pantry, so that the recipes are also financially accessible to our neighbors. And then she'll actually give them samples and let them try everything that she's preparing. And oftentimes she'll give a sample, and one of our neighbors will give feedback and say, hey, this would taste better if we had a little whatever in there, and hopefully it's not salt, which is often what we hear. But we find that this approach in not only having the healthy foods available, but also addressing the utilization aspect is really something that people are looking for. And the results are quite amazing. In fact, we did a study with Rutgers University a few years ago, and they surveyed our clients to see what the impact was. 85% of the people that were coming to our food pantry reported increasing their knowledge between what they're eating and their health outcomes, and a similar number actually reported health benefits. They were feeling better, their families were eating better. Some of them actually reported reducing medications and actually improving their overall health outcomes. So for us, it's really important that we include that utilization aspect in our mission, in what we do.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. We all know the 6 dimensions of food security, and one of those is the utilization. We want to make sure that the food is both usable, people aren't allergic to it, but also culturally relevant and available to the population that we work with, and that they know how to use it. I think that's such a creative way of making sure that the population knows how to use the resources that are available.
Yeah, and I would just add, because you touched on culturally relevant, we always want to have, and I think most of the agencies in this room want to have a wide variety, a wide selection of items that people know that they will use. They know their kids will eat this. But sometimes we have things that people don't know how to use. Those of us who work with the local farms and work with local gleaning partners will often, at the end of the season, get tons of butternut squash. And there are not a lot of people know what to do with butternut squash. So on one hand, it's having those items available, but then also when those items are in surplus, teaching people how to use those items, and, you know, giving them recipes and, you know, how do I cut this and how do I roast it? And then, you know, we find that people are being a little more open to introducing new nutrients into their diets.
Amazing. So Jessica, maybe you could share a little bit about your work, who you serve, and your approach to food literacy here at Montclair State University.
Yes, so I'm a senior chemist dietitian here at Montclair. In this role, I would like to say we would wear a lot of hats. So most of my days look the same. Keeps my work really engaging, really fun, and I am never bored. I am a food service manager, which means that you can find me running around the kitchen a lot of days. You can write the best menu ever, but it doesn't matter if you have 4 call-outs, 2 people on LOA, and your dish machine is also down. So I'm very engaged in the kitchen. I'm helping with managerial duties, making sure my staff is well supported, and making sure we have enough to run the wonderful programs that we're trying to run. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes on, and I'm really proud to be in a position where I have a voice in that process. A lot of times dietitians work tirelessly behind the scenes to get a lot of things done, as I'm sure a lot of you feel similarly as well. This is a position where I get to kind of be in charge of the menus and what the messaging around the menus are, and that's really unique for dietetics, which is lovely. So as a dietitian, I have the privilege of working alongside Carolyn Wheeler, who is our other chemist dietitian, and Dennis Cito, who is our director of dining and wellness and also dietitian herself. And we work really hard to build what we mentioned earlier, which was Nourish, our dietitian-led wellness initiative on campus. I work for Gourmet Dining, which is the dining provider for Montclair State. We took over about 2 years ago, so it has been a very long and a very short 2 years. And before we got here, there were no dietitians on campus, which was very surprising because of how robust of an undergraduate nutrition program Montclair runs. They also have a very robust dietetics program. Their internship program, as well as wonderful nutrition faculty and staff who are in the field as well. So we kind of hit the floor running, building our wellness program. Jen has served over 15 different gourmet dining campuses in her career, and she took that to kind of lead us to build a whole robust wellness program. So that looks like in the dining halls, we're allergy training our staff to make sure that our students with allergies and dietary restrictions, whether it be allergies or religious restrictions or preferences sometimes, can dine safely and can dine with foods that they like and prefer, which is a huge part of food security in general and definitely a step toward access for a giant student body population. So about 10% of our students have allergies. So at a 30,000 student campus, you can imagine how many of those students are utilizing our services. It's a very important step in food access. We also have a teaching kitchen. One of our dining halls was a new renovation 2 years ago. It is beautiful. It looks like a visual, I say, because there's a giant window on the outside where you can watch the teaching kitchen going on if you're not participating yourself. This is weekly culinary education, so I go in there. Sometimes it's myself, sometimes it is myself and a chef. Shredded them as well, and we teach a recipe. We work really hard to make sure that the recipes we're selecting are relevant and making sure they're not too advanced. And a lot of times, for the majority of them, we make sure that they're dorm friendly. So students are in a dorm, they don't have access to ovens, they don't have access to large amounts of storage. A lot of them are food insecure. A lot of them have not seen some of the ingredients we're working with. So it's a huge portion of nutrition education to show them, here are these ingredients, here is how we're going to prepare them, here is the nutritional value behind them. It's super hands-on, and they also get to eat what they created at the end, so they love it as well. And we do all the dishes, which is plus for them. That's really our value, right? We'll do your dishes if you come to my teaching kitchen. So it's also wonderful because that teaching kitchen is right across the hall. It's in Freeman's Dining Hall, which is right across my office. So a lot of times during counselings, we'll be talking about a topic, we'll be building balanced meals, and we can walk right across the hall and I can show them. And sometimes that's a lot more valuable than just talking to talk. Is actually putting your hands in the heat and saying, this is how you heat the oil, this is how you saute your vegetables. this vegetable is in season, this is the kind of benefit you're going to get from these vegetables. It's like the whole full circle kind of thing. I do sports nutrition presentations for our student athletes. We have a lot of teams on campus, so we work really hard to build a relationship with the sports teams. We do a lot of menu writing, so we like to say that we try to menu and work-wire nutrition, hard-wire nutrition right into those menus. So we do a bunch of interactive table events, so like a citrus tasting with 8 or 9 different types of citrus. Can anyone in here name 8 or 9 types of citrus? These are the students. And honestly, before I did this, neither could I. So we have a bunch of different things that come in, and they get to learn that it's not just a navel orange. They get to learn what a tangerine is, what a mandarin orange is, what the difference in taste is. So that's building food literacy right there. Same thing, apple tasting. Jen likes to tell a story about how she had a student try a Macintosh apple, bite into it and say, "This is not just a laptop." So a lot of people, a lot of students haven't seen anything besides the red or green apple. So it's expanding their worldview of what kind of foods exist and also building their flavor profile as well. So this is sweet apple, this is tart apple. And it seems silly for a lot of them, but they're building skills and also dipping a toe into the world of food is just more than it's something unreachable. So they can bring those things in while they have access to dining halls, while they have access to free nutrition counseling. So when they're out in the world, it may become 2% easier. We collaborate a lot with the undergraduate program here. So, like I said, a really robust undergraduate program, a really robust dietetic internship program, which is a graduate program. We take some community nutrition students every year for one of their class projects. This past year, we did an initiative called RIB, short for familiarity. So it spoke a lot to not just what you're eating, but how you're eating it. So I really like that first presentation talking about mental health initiatives and mindfulness, because are you sitting at a table on your phone, shoving a meal down? Are you taking time to talk to your colleagues or your peers? Are you thinking about the food you're eating, how it tastes, how it feels in your mouth, what might be in that meal? So our goal is to provide family-style meals to the students in our residential dining rooms, which is really important because for a lot of students, maybe not going home for the things. We did a Friendsgiving meal, so maybe they're not going home for Thanksgiving, or maybe they don't have family to share that holiday with, and a lot of times they're building family-like relations while they're here in college. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing like a science-based nutrition initiative, but also just having them gather and eat together. So that was really good. So we had our nutrition undergraduates involved in that. We take 2 graduate students a year, so dietetic interns, they get to follow us around for 4 weeks and do all the crazy activities we're doing as they learn how to become dietitians. So we do our best to teach them what we're doing and why. I always stress my interns that the why is really important. We do, of course, nutrition counseling, so free and unlimited nutrition counseling is something super important. That we are always trying to advertise and market. Sometimes it seems like too many times you have them, they don't read what's in front of them. But word of mouth is really important. Speaking from our classes is really important. They say, "Oh yeah, that's a dietitian. I had a question about this." And once they see your face and you build that relationship with them, they'll feel more comfortable asking you questions and things about matter. I think that's really important probably in all of your work as well. You're trying to build relationships with the people you're seeing frequently, or just build a relationship with the person one time. And they might say to another person they know is struggling, "Hey, they're really nice here, they really talk to you, get to know you. If you need resources, this is the place to be." Just a bunch of community building. So nutrition counseling is free and unlimited. In the college population, you typically see the traditional college age of 18 to 23, but that is not to say that I cannot see people from all walks of life. I do a lot of general wellness counseling, but I see a lot of prediabetes and diabetes and high cholesterol and hypertension, and so that nutrition counseling is tailored to where they're at. Limited budget is a really common theme in this population, as limited storage and resources. So I'm excited to talk more about what we're doing and to listen to my panelists as well. So.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think it's, I love that you highlighted that you're providing the students with skills that they can use in college, and then they can take it with them for the rest of their lives. Trying new foods, learning how to cook, all of those things students can use They're in college, I think.
They're definitely at an ADS stage in their life where they're building those health behaviors, those health skills. So it's really important that they learn as much as they can while they're here.
Absolutely. And that they have access to the dining halls and somebody to wash their dishes. That's the most important thing when, so Caitlin, maybe you can share a little bit about your work, you serve the population you work with, and how you approach food literacy.
So I work at the ShopRite of Northvale, New Jersey, but I am just one of about a dozen dietitians on the team at Inserra Supermarkets, and my supervisor Dana is here today, manager of health and wellness. We each have our own store, which means we have our geographical area that we cover. So the customer base that I see in Northvale might be very, very different than the customer base in New City, New York, might be very different than the customer base in Hoboken. So we are community dietitians, and our offices are in the grocery store where people are making those choices for themselves and their families for the week. And so as customers are shopping, we are a resource for them. We do many, many different events in our community. We might go off-site to a senior center and do a presentation on the DASH diet. I might go to a pre-K and read a book and make a snack with the little ones. Health fairs, events like this. We do free one-on-one counseling as well. No payment, no insurance required. They could see me in person. They could be over the phone. It could be virtual. We do cooking classes, both in person and online. So we try to reach, from the littlest members of our community all the way up to the top to make sure that they realize that we are a free resource for them. And being in that community means you reach people repeatedly. I go to the library every month. I see the same kids every month. And so I can really build on the skills and the knowledge that they have. I go to the senior center a couple times a year. We can scaffold on that information, taking on interns and teaching them about the differences between teaching, this population versus that population. So being in the store, you get a unique perspective on the choices that people are making, how they are making those choices. One of the things that I really like to do is a store tour, where I either tack it on at the end of a counseling session, or it could be an event unto itself. I take people through the aisles and we look at what they need to look at. If somebody wants to switch up their peanut butter because the one they're eating has too much sugar in it and their doctor told them they need to change that up, I want to take them to that aisle where there are 20 different brands on the shelf and they don't know where to start. I can be the filter for them and pick maybe the 3 brands that I might think are in service to their goals. And then I can help them look at those labels, look at those prices, tease out what values they have and how I can help to support them in those goals.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I love that you are able to kind of meet people where they are, where they're making those really important decisions for their families, and kind of empower them to make the best choices for themselves and their families. I especially appreciate you saying that, you want to help them choose things that are in service of their goals, and so you're really having a, I don't want to say customer, but a customer-centered approach to that food literacy work. So Carolyn, we're going to come back to you. Can you talk a little bit about how you got the nutrition program at Interfaith off the ground and some of the specific challenges that you faced as you were trying to implement that program, and maybe what you and your team were able to do to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, sure. One of the things I do want to mention is that the ShopRite dietitians, Caitlin and her colleagues, are a fantastic resource. And staff, but what she can't do is that kind of one-on-one counseling that a lot of people need, and I can't tell you how many of the people that we're serving, we've said, you need to go to ShopRite, we know them by name, you need to go talk to Monica. She can help you with your particular situation, so thank you for the work, actually both of you, thank you for the work that you do. Our nutrition program started very small. It began about 15 years ago. My predecessor was very wise to start reading up on some of the studies that were being done by the CDC. There was one published by the New England Journal of Medicine about the food insecure population and how much being food insecure actually costs us in healthcare. And this one report indicated that, the city of Boston alone was spending about $2 billion in healthcare costs of food insecure people, because when you're food insecure, you're going to whatever's available to you, bodegas, dollar menu, eating cheaply and feeding your family the same. So using some of those reports and some of the data that she had collected, she was able to apply for a grant from what was then Kraft. So that kind of tells you where we were at the time. And we did receive our first grant to hire our nutritionist. At that time, we were operating out of the basement of a shelter that was built in 1922. There were sinks and, plumbing in places that were meant for food storage, never meant for food storage, I should say. No cooking facilities. It looked nothing like what we're operating now. But as food pantry operators, we know what to do, and we know how to make the very most of the spaces and the resources that are given to us. So our nutrition educator was working, I think, about 6 hours a week at the time. And most of the funds were used for her to take the foods that we had available in the pantry and see what we could do with what we had available. Can we substitute the white rice with a little bit of brown rice? If we do that, how do we encourage people to start eating that? How do we take the cans of beans that we had at the time, teach people how to rinse the sodium out of it before they started preparing these things? So we had very limited funds for actual foods, for produce, but our very first grant, our very first purchase was a few bags of oranges, and we were able to give citrus out to our clients, and that was very exciting at the time. And I just bring that up because we're all challenged with space, and we're all challenged with, how we're operating and what's available to us. She actually had a hot plate that she purchased with her own funds and put it on a rolling cart that probably originated at King's Supermarket in 1983. It probably had like the squeaky wheels and the handles falling off, but she would roll it out during distribution sessions, and we would encourage people to come visit her, and she would have the handouts in little cups at that time. And, people are timid and trying to convince people that this is something you want to do and this is something you want to access was a bit of a challenge at first, because generally our population, they just want to come, they want to get their food, they want to split, that's it. They don't really want to hang around, they don't want to know a whole lot of what we're trying to encourage them to do to make themselves better. So it did take time, and it took convincing. But what we found was that having peers and having neighbors themselves that were utilizing the services convinced the other people that were in attendance for that particular food distribution session, saying, hey, you gotta go try it. It's really good. Having, again, a wide variety of different foods, different culturally relevant foods available was also key. And having neighbors themselves performing translation services, saying, hey, you should go out and try what that person is doing out there, really kind of softened up the people that we were working with so that they were then able to take advantage of what we were offering them. It took time, but now I want to say, the nutrition classes are packed. People are really benefiting from this, and with 40% of our population that we're serving indicating they have some kind of health problem, whether it's hypertension or, high blood sugar, whatever it is. We're finding that the dialogue that they're having with each other and encouraging that dialogue with each other and the feedback loops has kind of helped us overcome where we were and get us to where we are. Another really important piece of our nutrition program is feedback and data. We were able to grow the program because we were collecting surveys during every distribution session from everyone who took advantage of the nutrition programs. We were able to then use that data to translate into funding. And so we now have a program that is funded by a healthcare partner and a pharmaceutical partner whose missions are aligned with ours. They, again, want to see community health improvements and realize that it starts here. It always starts here. There's things you can do in the healthcare profession to address health problems after the fact. But if we can prevent them to begin with, it starts with what people are putting into their bodies. There's that old adage, you are what you eat, right? And that's because the nutrition are the building blocks into great human beings and healthy human beings and what we are and what we're capable of. So for those of you that are considering starting a program like this, I would say start small with the resources that you have and build on it. And then use the resources that are available to you. We used, dietitians from St. Elizabeth University, which were a really great resource for us. We used the ShopRite dietitians to help develop materials and develop recipes. And there are some really great programs that even if you didn't want to start your own nutrition program that you can leverage. SNAP-Ed, Sioux Falls Clinic has a really great SNAP-Ed program. They will come out and do nutrition education with the folks that are visiting your pantries. Just do your research and see what's available to you. And so you can speak with my colleagues here. They can refer you to even other, really terrific resources. And again, we're a resilient group, and this is what we do. We're constantly looking for, how do we move the needle? How do we really create this impact on our communities that we want? And there are really fantastic ways to do this with what you have right now.
Thanks, Carolyn. You mentioned some of that feedback and data that you were getting from the population that you serve. Can you share with us maybe one really interesting piece of data or some really interesting feedback that you received that maybe was unexpected and made you kind of pivot your program and consider, we need to do X, Y, Z, and we were doing, this other thing?
As I indicated, about 85% of people taking advantage of this program are eating healthier. They also increase their knowledge about, food and about nutrition. They learn how to read labels. And in looking at that, if you can take the number of people that you're serving, know how many are bringing health problems to you, and then knowing how many are making steps to improve those health problems, you're showing real outcomes that are very interesting and, to different people that are in the healthcare community. So definitely have your surveys ready, know what questions to ask, and you can build programs from the ground up.
Great, thank you. So Caitlin, can you talk a little bit about how you turn evidence-based research in nutrition into practical advice for the community members that you serve, the general public? I know Jessica talked a little bit about some of the mental health research, how it was related to eating research. Can you talk a little bit about how you're looking at evidence-based research and turning that into advice for your community?
So there are 3 branches that I thought of for this question. The first is that in my role, I'm sure Jessica will agree with me, a lot of what I do is not necessarily educating on nutrition information, it is dispelling misinformation. And people see it on social media, They watch the evening news and they don't report a study right. Their cousin's neighbor's dog lost 10 pounds doing this. So people have come to me and they're getting caught up in the weeds of these weird things that they're seeing all over the place. And I was at Peace University this past weekend with the dietitian from West Point, and she used a really good word to describe this. She says it's a distraction. All of this is a distraction from the really important, good nutrition work that we can be doing. So the first branch of this is getting back to basics. Instead of worrying about this one particular food ingredient, are you getting 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? Are you even getting 2? Looking at those basic foundational blocks, right, that we generally understand what a healthful diet looks like, but a lot of people are getting caught up in the details without building that base for themselves. That's going to make the most impact. The second branch of this to me is contextualizing what they hear. So a year ago, 2 years ago, to bring up an example, the soundbite was aspartame causes cancer. And that's what people latched onto. And what I like to do as a dietitian is put that in context. Well, if you look at the rankings of carcinogenic components, aspartame is lower than red meat. And now all of a sudden people are thinking, well, I eat beef way more frequently than I have a diet soda. So all they heard was that one little soundbite. They don't understand what it means in the context of an overall healthy diet. And then the final part of this, to me, is related to the first, is letting perfect be the enemy of good. That a lot of people say, well, if I can't get my 5 fruits and veggies in during the day, I'm not gonna try. And I'm like, no, try. Please eat a plant today. If we can't get to 5, can we start you at 1.5? If you're not eating any fish at all, right? 2 servings of fatty fish a week. If you're not eating any fish at all, can you try tuna one time between now and the next time I see you? And then we'll talk about it. So for me, it's finding those little things that people are getting caught up on and releasing them, freeing them from that burden of, oh my gosh, all of this stuff, I don't know what to think. It's like, no, you know what a basic, wholesome, healthful diet looks like. And I can help you kind of sort through what is relevant to you, your financial situation, your healthcare profile, your values, and what's noise.
Yeah. I love that. And I think we've all been on the receiving end of like a WhatsApp forward or a TikTok video that told us about one miracle ingredient that we had to like have every day, or one thing that we had to stop eating. And I think it's easy to forget that for some people, that's really going to resonate with them, and they're just gonna kind of latch onto it. So I think that you did a great job of really like simplifying it and giving people the confidence to believe that, like, hey, I do know what I'm talking about. I do know what I can do to eat better, and you can support me in kind of meeting those goals. So Jessica, you work specifically with college students, many of whom are on really limited budgets, and you mentioned may not have regular kitchens, access to full kitchens, and maybe don't have a lot of experience food shopping or cooking for themselves. Can you talk about some of the most successful things that you've been able to help students kind of incorporate into their college lives, and how you help them build food literacy while they're in college, and hopefully take those skills beyond college?
I definitely agree that starting with basics is super important. I don't expect any of my students, my faculty, my staff, my peers to know anything about nutrition. That's why we have jobs. That's our job to educate, and I never assume that anyone knows anything. So that being said, about 25% of my job is correcting nutrition misinformation. So just because someone doesn't know the truth about nutrition does not mean that they have not formed nutrition beliefs from elsewhere. Whether that be the internet, which is really common amongst my population, like the 18 to 23-year-olds, or an older population. Facebook is really pulling its weight these days. So people see a lot of different things, they believe a lot of different things. And it's really important as nutrition practitioners that we understand where those beliefs are coming from. So I like to listen a lot and understand why. Whether it's like who told you that you needed this supplement to detox your liver to have a flat stomach? I do a lot of like carbs are not your mortal enemy type of education. I do a lot of untangling. I like what you were saying. Like who told you that your cultural foods can't be considered healthy? But what lens are you looking at it through? What do those cultural foods consist of? If I don't know it, let me look it up. Tell me how your family prepares it. Let's break down the components of those meals and I'll teach you about what's in them. You can find nutrition in just about anything if you look through a different lens. I also, in my counselings, I always give them a disclaimer when we're building rapport in the beginning of counseling. I say, if I am recommending something that you're sitting there and it's never going to happen, and I'm never going to eat this, I can't believe this dietitian is telling me to eat this, you need to tell me. Like, I cannot recommend a food or a pattern of eating that works for you unless you're giving me feedback and we're talking together. That being said, we always explore different methods of preparation before we get to that hard no. But a lot of times we work on hiding vegetables. Like, we're just big toddlers most of the time. You don't always have to like your vegetables. That's okay. Some people never grow into liking their vegetables, but also a lot of people never grow into building the skills to prepare vegetables in a way that tastes good. So have you tried preparing it in a different way? Have you tried seasoning it differently, the way that aligns with your goals? Can you hide the taste of that kale in your smoothie? You don't have to taste it, it's still there, it's still gonna get nutrition from it. How to blend things up in a sauce. I think it's really important for perishable foods especially. We did a butternut squash Alfredo sauce. So we also make sure our chicken kitchens are seasonal. So, those are the foods that you were saying are readily available and they're most affordable and they're definitely going to be seen at pantries and the like in that season, so we make sure it's relevant with that. But creative ways of using things like that. We talked a little about showing them, so of course you teaching kitchens and we show them directly. But I do have shopping list building in sessions, so I love my shopper dietitians. When I started to think that, hey, I might want to do this as a career, I actually went and found my local shopper dietitian, and her name was Jessica as well, and she showed the way. But a lot of you students, first year, maybe you're on a meal plan, maybe you get some second year students on the meal plan, but a lot of students who come to see me are just out on their own for the first time, have never cooked before, have never grocery shopped for themselves, don't know how to get to the store. Montclair actually has a program where they shuttle students from campus to the little college shop rate, so I'm giving them the resources for that as well. But we sit together and we build a shopping list, so it's not super overwhelming, so I would definitely relate to the 20 grams of peanut butter. It's overwhelming for myself, grocery stores, so I don't expect it to be anything less for my students or my clients. We make sure we're using a shopping app, so they have a list, they can put it in the app, and it helps control impulse purchases. We make sure to have snacking plans, sometimes build snack lists and things like that, because it's not all about the meals. Like, a lot of the times you can reach your nutrition goals or get closer with snacks, so they're always supportive. It seems pretty basic, but I've been incorporating a lot more recently, like teach back, which is super basic for any kind of education, but we spend 45 minutes talking about balanced meals. Okay, now with the ingredients we just talked about, tell me what your balanced meal is going to look like. Tell me where in the store you're going to find this. And sometimes you get a blank stare, and that's the opportunity where you can be like, okay, there's a disconnect. We have to go back and figure out what you're not understanding or where the education wasn't tailored exactly to you, and we figure out the problem. It's very easy to be in a counseling session and nod your head. Does not mean you understand what I'm saying. And I've learned that, so it's good to make those you're trying to educate, teach it back. And it doesn't have to be formal or scary. You just kind of like, so what does it look like for you? Or like, what sounds good? I like to use, does this make sense for you? Like, is this feasible? I like to say that a lot. Is this feasible? You can tell me no. I think as people who are trying to provide resources for others, be open to no's, because it lets you learn your clients better and provide better information.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think I had the experience of only having had steamed broccoli my whole life.
And then when I had roasted broccoli for the first time, I was like, this is like, it feels like a different food. And so I feel like the value of like having the opportunity to actually taste the things that you're describing, walking them over to distribution, and like giving people the opportunity to practice making things that they might not have been familiar with, delicious things that are going to support a healthy and lifestyle. So Carolyn, I want to hear a little bit more about what kind of made you all start your food literacy program. Why was it important for you to provide the opportunity for people to improve their food literacy, and maybe how that program fits into the 6 dimensions of food security. So I know you already mentioned utilization, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, and all right, you mentioned the 6 dimensions of food security, and Mark can yell at me later because I'm here trying to get that right. Most of you who are,
Want me to Google it?
I think I
would forget all of the.
A lot of you are probably already familiar with the 6 dimensions of food security, and this is the availability of proper nutritious foods. It is access, can I get to my food? It is agency, agencies like ours that provide the food to our people. Stable, is a source of food stable? Sustainable, is this short term, is this long term? Can we continue this? Do we have the funding to do this? And utilization, which is sort of what we're focusing on today, is the utilization piece. Hend was kind enough to, or no, actually it was Heather that defined what it means to create a food secure community, and it's not just giving out as many packets of mac and cheese and noodles to keep people from going around hungry.
1,000 pounds of orange marmalade.
But if we're really going to create food secure communities, what we're doing is we're making sure that families have the proper amount of the right nutritious foods that are relevant to you that you will use to keep you and yourselves and your families and your grandparents healthy. And so really looking at this as, food insecurity being a major social determinant of health, and it is now recognized by the CDC and the World Health Organization as one of the key social determinants of health. So this is what sort of has changed our work, I think, for all of us in this space over the last 10 or 15 years. So it's really why, and I have to tell you, we've been in business for 30 years now. When we started the Healthy Choices program 15 years ago, my board was not completely on board with this. And they were like, well, we should be using our resources to acquire as much food and just distribute as much food as we can because there's such great need. And it really, I think our approach for not just us, but a lot of us, was from a scarcity mindset. I only have this much in my food budget. I only have this much available to me. I need to, be able to get these houses of worship to send me as much food as they can possibly collect from their congregants and send me a lot of it so I can meet this need. Versus really looking at it as, look at what we're doing to our community, look at what's happening to these kids that can't focus in school because they're eating pretzels for breakfast. Look what's happening to our seniors who are not getting the proper nutrition, and how many of them are ending up, as I mentioned, costing us all in the long run. So it was a sell to change our mission statement from the first part of our mission being to provide food to Morris County families in need, which is what it began with, to improve the health and well-being of Morris County families by providing them with nutrition education, and related resources. So it is kind of a new way of thinking. And interestingly enough, our first nutrition educator, her husband was on our board. And he was not completely sold, and she had just completed her nutrition education education program at St. And he was like, well, I don't know if this is what we should be doing, do we really need to be spending money on this? And so I'm sure they had a lot of dinner time discussions, and she may have been the one to pull them along, but it really did change, it made a big shift in the work that we do, and I think not just for us, but for a lot of us in this room.
Yeah, I think that scarcity mindset is so real. Like, we're thinking about, well, we could get, this many, pounds of this ingredient that's like really high in sugar or really high in sodium versus like this lesser amount of fresh produce or something like that. So it's really, I think it's an important consideration, but I think you have demonstrated for us today that we can actually get kind of the balance and teach people how to use some of the ingredients that we're getting more affordably. For everybody, right?
And it's definitely a balance. I'm not saying that the canned ravioli that some of us get from the USDA and, some of those items, people still want them and they'll put them in their pantry and they serve a purpose. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take some of the cheap foods that are available to you. I have a lot in my own pantry at home. Sorry, but ramen noodles is like one of those things that I grew up with, and it's still a very, it's one of my guilty pleasures every once in a while. I try not to do it too much. But eggs, which are a great source of protein, and such a great topic of conversation past few minutes, are still even at $8 a dozen, a $2 high protein meal if you're eating 2 eggs. It's, despite the prices of, being not what we're used to, it's something that we'll always have available to our people because look at this, I can get this can of ravioli, which is a source of protein, or I can get these eggs. Even at $8 a dozen, the thought process is, we're going to continue to do this, and also because it's so widely used. So, our canned box goods definitely have a place.
Right.
But a shift, and again, making that variety available so that people can take what is relevant to them and they can take the foods that they know they'll use, it is important. And our seniors still love their Vienna sausages.
Well, everything's about that balance, isn't it? So I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, so we have some time for our audience members to ask questions, I'm gonna jump to our last question, which is, what advice would each of you share? Maybe give us 1 minute, 1 minute each. What advice would you share with others who are wanting to help community members, especially on a limited budget with limited resources, make the most of their food options, and really, help them have an active and healthy lifestyle? So, rapid fire, 1 minute each.
Start small and look for the resources available to you. Some of whom we've discussed and some of whom are right in front of you. Even if you can affect the behavior of 1, 2, 3 people that are coming to you for help, you've made a difference in those lives.
I think Caitlin alluded to this, but something's better than nothing. As dietitians, we can ruin any food for you, but we can also find nutrition in everything. So sometimes when I have students or clients who are struggling with a lot of should mindset, like I should eat this, I shouldn't eat this is good, this is bad, I have them finding the nutrition benefit of a Big Mac because there is some to it. There's a lot of shame around food consumption in general, but especially the food insecure population. So reducing that shame and something's better than nothing, we want them to be fueling no matter what they have access to is a really important mindset to, I think, start with.
I did not come up with this phrase, I wish I did because I think it's great. Nutrition by addition. If you're having ramen noodles, what can we add protein-wise or veggie-wise that's going to boost the nutrient content of that? If you're eating 2 Big Macs, a large fry for lunch, can we make it 1 Big Mac, a small fry with a side of apple slices? How can we take what you're already doing, instead of taking it away from you, what can we add to it to get you closer to that health goal that you need to be reaching?
Beautiful. Thank you so much to all 3 of you. Can we get a So we do have time for a couple of questions, either for one of our specific panelists or for all three of them. But if there are any questions, now's the time.
Question. I want to know what your advice is for parents that you're seeing that have picky eaters or picky eaters that you're working with. Some of the kids maybe are helpful, but any thoughts on these picky eaters?
Sorry, can I just repeat the question? The question is about tips for dealing with picky eaters.
So I love working with kids. This is one of my favorite niche areas. When it comes to picky eating, exposure is the name of the game. And it doesn't have to be eating it, it's exposure. The biggest thing that I tell parents is get them in the kitchen with you. You're building a skill with them and they're interacting with the food without necessarily the pressure of putting it in their body. Sometimes for kids, right, it's a violation. It's this food that I don't want, I'm being forced to eat. So instead, can you chop this broccoli for me? And they don't have to eat it, but they're touching it, they're smelling it, they're looking at it. Using carrier foods to help. We say in picky eating, there should be a safe food on the plate, something that they will eat even if they decide not to touch anything else. The more you ramp up that pressure, the more their defense mechanisms go up. So kind of a low pressure environment to be like, here's the food, eat it or not. And you as the parent determine what is being served, when it is being served, and the child is determining if they are eating it, and if so, how much. It's called the division, what is it called? Division of responsibility in picky eating. You as the parent have your responsibility, and they as the child have theirs.
Go ahead, Jessica.
So I worked undergrad for a research program that was state funded for building healthy habits for families, basically, and picky eating comes up a lot. It's super frustrating because as a parent, all you want to do is have your kid be nourished and you're trying everything you can. Exposure is important. The research actually says 8 to 10, exposures until they can accept it. Okay, what do you do? The kids throwing food across the room. Changing the environment after they tried it the first time. Obviously, they try with no pressure. You don't have to finish it as long as you try it. Changing the environment where they're on the second time, the third time that they try the food can be important. Associations are sometimes formed when you have that negative experience with the food, and changing that can be helpful sometimes.
Thank you. Any other questions today? So if there aren't any questions from the audience, then I'll ask one more. Can any of you share maybe a story or a time that you, a situation where you worked with a community member and you really were able to see the impact of you and your team's work?
I have 9 or 10 or 90, I'm not sure.
Pick your favorite.
One of my favorite was a gentleman who had been coming to our pantry for a long time. It was probably 15 years. And he spoke at our fundraising event a few years ago, and he told a story about how his daughter had died. He had taken on the care of his granddaughter. He was disabled, he couldn't work, he was going to the food pantry. And when his granddaughter was growing up, that, we had a little holiday gift program and we were able to get his family adopted. And she received lights and toys and things like that from some of our supporters. And he talked about the nutrition program and how much he learned from this. And he was just using bullying in everything that he made, and he had such a high sodium diet just from lack of knowledge, and it ended up developing some serious cardiac issues as he was raising his granddaughter. He started eating differently, he learned how to read labels, he started eliminating different things from his diet, and he credited Katie, our nutrition educator, with saving his life and making him available to his granddaughter, which he felt he would not have been there for her, and he hadn't learned and wasn't able to make those changes. So that's one example of, some of the wonderful things that have happened with our nutrition program.
Yeah, I think Jessica or Caitlin?
We had a student who really stuck out. It was a transgender student who was wonderful and always in our dining hall, but sought out help with dietitians because had a new diagnosis, pre-diabetes, which was very quickly approaching diabetic ranges. Also doing on hormones, and so there was a bunch of different, emotional and mental changes happening, physical changes as well. And so there was a lot of space for nutrition intervention. So we met a couple times for some general diabetes education. Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. Changed the whole way that he was eating, and he could check in with us at the dining halls. Say, hey, look at my plate. Hey, this is what we talked about. Is this great? Yes, check mark, amazing. That validation sometimes is really important. But the other problem was that he was about to be housing insecure. So we contacted the LGBTQ resources on campus and were able to secure him temporary housing so he wasn't kicked out of school with nowhere to go, and he could continue having medical care. And he wasn't able to finish, I think couldn't finish the semester, and would return the next semester, but he made a point to come back. It's not that kills something, but made a point to come back a few months later into our dining hall and say, look at my numbers, my A1C has dropped, my sugars are better, and I have housing, I have a job now. And my doctor says I'm doing great, thank you so much. And it was so wonderful to be able to just be one part of that. And it was just really exciting. And also we got some partner with all the other resources on campus. So it wasn't just us, but it was just good to play a role in that.
Many of us have had the experience of, people having to access nutrition and food, that's my alarm, to access food and nutrition and often need other services, like housing support or other support. So thank you for highlighting that. Caitlin, anything you would
Kind of going back to kids, anytime I get to spend with kids makes me smile because they're so cute and innocent and they just have such a wonderful outlook on life. And when I go to the libraries, I love it when kids are able to tell me, I've never tried a blackberry before. I didn't like it. And I'm like, okay, but you tried it. I remember I did a program at a school one time. We did Brussels sprouts taste testing, and a little girl ran up to me and she said, this is only a little delicious. Or parents will say to me, she never tried black beans before, but you brought it to this, Girl Scout event that we did, and she's eating it. I can never get her to do that. So it's not one kid, it's like all of the kids. Like anytime I get that feedback from the child or their parent, because that's planting the seed early in life to hopefully, as they grow, they appreciate nutrition and good food and taking care of their bodies, taking care of the world. That's the best.
And hopefully all three of these wonderful ladies will be around-ish during lunch and can chat with you then as well. So thank you again, panelists, thank you, Ronnie. Thank you.